Football, you hear it all the time that the NFL is now a year-round sport. And yeah, you think you understand it. And then last night's content was more compelling than half the games we have in the regular season. That's why we're here. It is March 11th. I am looking at Shelby Harris on the right in the cool jacket. Jason Cabini, who's got all kinds of takes. Guys, what was your favorite part of the Max Crosby Baltimore Raven era? Go ahead.
I mean, it's the fact that I ordered my number 98 Baltimore Ravens jersey off Fanatics.com. I hope it's not already shipped, and I hope I can get my money back.
Man, I'm just mind blown out here, man. We haven't seen anything like this really in forever. So this is just a once in a lifetime type of thing. And so I don't even know where to begin.
I hear you. Well, we'll begin with raw information. Cabinda, I don't care if you have the receipt. That sucker is paid for. You are getting it, and you are wearing it. It is Good Morning Football. Let's start the show right now. Crazy times. Welcome to Good Morning Football. This is happening. Let's get right into it. You're following the news cycle. You can't believe what you watched, and we feel like we've seen everything, and we can't believe what we just watched. Let's bring up the image because this did happen. Someone did make this. We all agree. This is a real thing. There was not so much a divorce between the Ravens and Max Crosby as an annulment. I remember Britney Spears was once married, God bless her heart, for 55 hours, and that was about the Max Crosby Ravens era. He is now no longer a Raven. If you didn't see the news, we're about to get into it right now. Ian Rapoport, Tom Pelissero, I've never been more excited to bring you in, and I'm always excited to bring you in. You know, it's great to see you guys. You always tell us when these trades happen. Now, remember, it's not official till the start of the league year, and we're always like, yeah. And then we saw what happened last night, what's happening this morning. Ian, Tom, I want to hear your opinions on this. I want to hear your headlines. What the hell just happened with Max Crosby?
All right, so let's start with the facts of the situation. The trade for Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 first-round picks is now off. That is something that we learned via the Raiders last night, announcing that that the trade that we all thought was going to happen, the blockbuster trade, had been called off by the Ravens. Now, our understanding is this situation really escalated yesterday afternoon. Max Crosby was in Baltimore, was taking his physical. And remember, trades are contingent upon a player passing his physical. We can talk about it. We sort of assume nothing is final until a player passes his physical and the team doctors and team personnel are all saying, okay, this is going to be fine. He is going to play for us. We have no issues. We have known, Tom, that Max Crosby underwent a full meniscus repair. That was right at the end of the season. Dr. Neil Elitros performed the procedure. It is about 2 months out from that. This is a 4 to 6 month recovery. This is something that we have known. We discussed this in the lead up to the Super Bowl on the pregame show. These were the facts, and the Ravens believed that Max Crosby's knee would be fine moving forward. And then they examined it. Then they did the full test, and they said, you know what? This is not going to be okay for us. It is a huge risk to do a trade like this. It is 2 first-round picks plus the contract. If they were not comfortable with the physical, then they should not move forward, and that is exactly what happened. The Ravens were not comfortable with what they saw. The trade is now off, and Crosby goes back to Las Vegas with the mindset of playing for the Raiders.
Here's what I would say. As big of a story as the Max Crosby trade being off is for fans, for the media, for Good Morning Football, it is a bigger story right now within the NFL. I have spoken over the past 12 hours since the news broke with roughly a dozen current and former NFL GMs. There are occasionally trades, signings that are vetoed because of some type of a medical issue. But no one I talked to could remember another example of a known medical issue scuttling a blockbuster trade like this, like the one that was just scuttled for Max Crosby. GMs that I spoke to, by and large, and I would say unanimously, took the stance that this is on Baltimore, that this is, to quote a few of the GMs I spoke to, dirty pool, that it is BS, that it is buyer's remorse. You are trading for a 29-year-old player with a known knee injury. It could not have been documented more. Max Crosby was on the injury report basically all last season. He barely practiced. He was shut down, much to his chagrin, with 2 games to go. He underwent meniscus surgery. He posted photos of himself on social media, pre and post-op. Ian reported that it was a meniscus repair, which is much longer on the timeline area than a meniscus trim would be, though better for the long-term health of the knee. Max Crosby is 8 weeks post-op. Everyone knew that. On top of that, he is a 29-year-old player that, if you examine a 29-year-old professional athlete's knee, it's not going to look the same as a 22-year-old professional athlete's knee. None of that prevented the Ravens and other teams from bidding significant resources to go and get Max Crosby. So while the Ravens, to Ian's point, have to do what is best for the Ravens, I would just tell you this, Kyle. This is going to have aftershocks for the Ravens, I would say, based on the conversations I've had, for years to come. I have spoken to GMs in the league right now who have said this would make them nervous about doing trades with the Ravens in the future. I have spoken to agents, one of which is a very high-profile agent that everyone knows with high-profile clients, who told me, I have told my agents I will not do deals with the Ravens again during the negotiating window. Everything in the NFL, in terms of trades, in terms of these handshake agreements that we have across the NFL in the negotiating window when nothing can be signed and finalized, are about trust. This was, in the opinion of people within the league, an example of the Ravens breaking that trust. It is not going to be isolated to simply Max Crosby. This is something that is going to be potentially felt moving forward here. Trapped in the middle of it is a guy in Max Crosby who got off crutches like a week ago, has a long road to recovery. Again, well documented, well known. His agents, I talked to other teams that were involved in the Max Crosby talks. Everyone said his agents, C.J. LeBoy and Doug Hendrickson, were up front. Listen, he's not going to be cleared until June. He's not going to do anything in the spring, but he'll be ready to roll before the start of next season. The Ravens saw something that made them nervous about the long-term health of Max Crosby's knee. But when you have committed to trading 2 first-round picks for a 29-year-old superstar pass rusher, it is understood within the league you have now taken on that risk. Again, not the first trade that's been scuttled by a medical issue, not the first Ravens trade that has been scuttled by a medical issue, but no one within the NFL can remember another example of something playing out like this. This story, Kyle, is just getting started.
Well, listen, we need to hear from the Ravens. We need to hear a lot of information from the Ravens because, meanwhile, at best out there are fans who are saying they got cold feet. At worst, there are fans suggesting that something shady is going on. And to your point, Tom, Ian says 2 months into a 4 to 6 month recovery. Max Crosby is on this very show in a scooter going around on live television. There is no bait and switch here. There is no surprise. And there's this sentiment amongst fans about what were you expecting to find when you looked at the physical? The surgeon is out there saying he's doing great. The agent is saying he's doing great. So what exactly was it you're expecting to find? We are going to go back to L.A., but Tom, I'm going to go back to you. And then, Ian, I want you to follow. Tom, you mentioned talking to people around the league, GMs, front offices. They're angry, they're saber-rattling. What is it that they're suggesting the Ravens' motivation is? Why would they do this? Because they were supposedly excited to get Max Crosby, and then something changed.
If you go to a used car dealership and buy a Ferrari that's been driven for 8 years and you drive it off the lot, you don't really have a lot of recourse in terms of looking under the hood and going, boy, this doesn't look like a new car. That's the sense that people within the league have gotten. Now, the Ravens had a pre-trade agreement with the Raiders. That is standard practice. It allows them to examine the player. It gives them the rights to be able to put Max Crosby through a physical. They would have had his scans. They would have known the examinations that have been done. But when you're talking about NFL teams, there are 32 teams with 32 doctors and 32 degrees of risk tolerance. Not everybody, just like we see in the pre-draft process, is going to pass a player that another team would pass. Obviously, the Ravens, again, were averse to the risk once they examined the player. The issue that people within the league have with how this was handled is the fact that you had a known risk here. This is not Bashaud Breeland showing up to the Panthers in 2017 after agreeing to a contract and has a infected cut in his foot from a trip to the Dominican Republic, and the Panthers go, we can't sign you. You can't play. Max Crosby played all last season with a significant injury that required a surgery. He is still in the early stages of his recovery. His Dr. Neil Elatres says that he is on schedule. If anything, according to his agent, Max Crosby's agent, C.J. LeBoy, he is ahead of schedule in that recovery. Again, the Ravens have that right. This is a pre-trade agreement that is sent. Eric DeCosta loves Max Crosby, the player. He wants Max Crosby on the team. He came to the conclusion that he couldn't take on that risk. The question then becomes, was the risk something that the Ravens should have been fully aware of? And if they were going to commit this type of draft capital, at that point, do you ask the player to put a waiver on the knee? Do you potentially come back to the Raiders and try to adjust the compensation, which most GMs I've spoken to have said would be a non-starter if someone came back to them and tried to adjust the compensation? There's a lot of different layers to it, but it comes down to this. It wasn't out of nowhere. This could not have been a more documented injury. The Ravens knew that going into the process. The feeling within the league is this should not happen, that you agree to make this type of trade, that you have a pre-trade agreement, and that you come to that conclusion, and then put everybody else in the league in a position where, how do you unwind all of this? The Raiders have committed huge money to a ton of free agents. The runner-up in the Max Crosby